All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a quest. Our mission? To really get a handle on one of the most vital and honestly misunderstood roles in tech today. And for our map, we're using something a little different, an official AWS exam guide. It's the literal blueprint for becoming a master of modern data. So let's kick things off with a number that's just mind-bendingly huge, 2.5 quintillion. That's a 2 with 18 zeros trailing behind it. Now, why does that matter? Because that's about how many bytes of data we're churning out every single day.
I mean, that's not just a lot of data. It's a digital storm, a total deluge. So you have to ask, who tames it? Who steps into that chaos and carves out clarity and value? Well, that hero, my friends, is the data engineer.
Okay, section 1, the data engineer's quest. And we're diving into this official AWS blueprint, not just to cram for some test, but to truly understand what it takes to get inside the head of a real data expert. So what does AWS say a certified data engineer actually is? Well, they're the pros who can build out data pipelines, keep a close eye on their performance, and wrestle with the famous 3 V's of data: the insane volume, the wild variety, and the sheer velocity of it all. They're basically the architects of the data universe.
And let's be clear, this is not an entry-level gig. The ideal person for this already has a solid 2 to 3 years in data engineering under their belt, plus some serious hands-on time working inside the AWS cloud. It's a role that's built on a foundation of real, hard-won experience. All right, section 2, trials by data. This is where it gets fun. To really see how a data engineer thinks, we're going to tackle 3 real-world problems, pulled straight from that exam guide. This is the kind of stuff they get paid to solve. So here's our first trial. Picture this. You've got an organization and they're just getting flooded with millions of tiny 1 kilobyte files coming in from all over the world. The systems that are supposed to process all this, they're slowing to a crawl. And why? Because handling millions of separate items, even tiny ones, creates this massive overhead. It's a classic small file problem. So what's the move? The business has to have this data, but building some brand new, complicated system just to handle these files would take forever and cost a fortune. How do you solve this elegantly? Using the tools you've already got. And this right here shows you the mindset of a great data engineer. The expert fix isn't to build something new and fancy. It's about knowing your tools. Here, you use a feature that's already built into AWS Glue. You just turn on the file grouping option, and bam! Glue automatically bundles all those tiny files into bigger, more efficient groups for processing. Problem solved with a single click, not with months of new code. Let's jump to our second trial. And this is a problem that almost every business feels deep in its bones. The data's all there, it's collected and stored, but actually asking questions of that data, running the analytics queries, is painfully slow, and it's costing a ton of money. The business needs answers, and they need them yesterday. The culprit here, it all comes down to a basic choice: the file format. The data's in CSV, which is row-based. That means to find one piece of info, the query has to read the entire row. The smart solution? Convert that data to Parquet, which is a columnar format. Now the system only has to read the specific columns it needs. It's literally the difference between having to read an entire book or just looking up a word in the index. The result? Way faster and way cheaper analytics. Okay, on to our third and final trial, and this one is a real security puzzle. A data processing job just keeps failing. You check all the permissions, and the job's role has full access to the S3 bucket where the data lives. I mean, it should work. So what's the hidden problem here? And the solution? Oh, it reveals such a critical idea. Data security has layers. See, the job had permission to access the bucket. That part's true. But the file itself was encrypted with a totally separate key using AWS's Key Management Service, or KMS. So the job needed a second permission, the right to use that key to actually decrypt the data. It's a perfect example of how a data engineer has to be a master of both access and encryption. Section 3, the expert's toolkit. So after seeing those challenges, what kind of tools do you actually need in your belt? Let's do a quick fire tour of the data engineer's toolkit, based on what the exam itself says you need to know. It all kicks off with ingestion and transformation. You've got to get the data in the door, right? Whether that's data streaming in real time with Kinesis, or using AWS Glue and PySpark to transform messy, raw files into perfectly clean data. Next up is storage and management. And this isn't just about dumping data somewhere. It's about making smart choices, picking the right home for it, like S3 for objects, a Redshift data warehouse, or a super fast DynamoDB database. And then you have to organize it all for top-tier performance and cost savings.
And now we get to the payoff, analysis and querying. This is all about getting answers. Data engineers use tools like Amazon Athena to ask questions of the data right where it sits, and then they hook it up to visualization tools like QuickSight so that leaders can actually see the insights.
And finally, wrapping around everything else is security and compliance. And this part is absolutely non-negotiable. Data engineers are the guardians of the data. They use IAM roles for least privileged access, KMS to encrypt everything, and tools like lake formation to control permissions down to the tiniest detail.
So after seeing all these complex challenges in this huge toolkit, we really have to ask the big question. Why does this quest, this really tough journey to become a data engineer, matter so much right now?
Well, the source material itself says it perfectly. This isn't just some interesting job. The guide says, quote, "This is an in-demand role with a low supply of skilled professionals." You can't ask for a more powerful combination if you're building a career in tech. And believe me, this isn't some weekend course we're talking about. This is a role that requires years of experience, backed up by a tough 130-minute exam, and you have to recertify every 3 years just to prove you're still on top of your game. It's a serious commitment.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? It's this. Data engineers are doing so much more than just managing data. They are building the actual foundations for insight, for innovation, and for the artificial intelligence that is going to define our future.
So I'll just leave you with this one last thought. As our whole world is being rebuilt, not with steel and concrete anymore, but with data, who are the people that are going to draw up the blueprints?